The entire population of Gaza is enduring destruction at a scale and speed without parallel in recent history. Nothing can justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. Excellencies, over 100 days have passed since more than 1,000. A lasting end to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict can only come through a two-state solution. Israelis must see their legitimate needs for security materialized, and Palestinians must see their legitimate aspirations for a fully independent, viable, and sovereign state realized in line with United Nations resolutions, international law, and previous agreements. Israel's occupation must end. Excellencies, last week's clear and repeated rejection of the two-state solution at the highest level of the Israeli government is unacceptable. And this was despite the strongest appeals from even the friends of Israel, including those sitting around this table. This refusal and the denial of the right to statehood to the Palestinian people would indefinitely prolong a conflict that has become a major threat to global peace and security. It would exacerbate polarization and embolden extremists everywhere. The right of the Palestinian people to build their own fully independent state must be recognized by all, and any refusal to accept the two-state solution by any party must be firmly rejected.
On one side, there is the will of the international community, and on the other side, the whims of an Israeli prime minister driven by a single goal: his own political survival, at the expense of the survival of millions of Palestinians under Israel's illegal occupation and peace and security for all. President, allow me at the outset to thank France. Netanyahu boasts publicly and repeatedly that he played a key role in preventing the independence of the Palestinian state and peace in our region, and pledges to continue doing so. Israel should no longer entertain the illusion that there is somehow a third path whereby it can choose continued occupation and colonialism and apartheid and somehow still achieve regional peace and security. This is not a viable path, nor a legitimate path. And you, Mr. Minister, for convening the Security Council at ministerial level. It is time for recognizing the admission of the State of Palestine to the UN. We were not granted a veto right over Israel's admission to the United Nations 75 years ago. Israel does not have a veto right over the admission of the State of Palestine 75 years later. The international consensus on two states in this land must be upheld in word and deed. There can be no more pretext for endless delay and obstruction.
Thank you, Mr. President. Should Hamas turn in those responsible for October 7th, and should Hamas release all the hostages, this war would be over immediately. This is not a war that Israel chose, but we will defend our future just as each of you would defend the future of your country. President, at the outset, I wish to thank France. There is a regime responsible for sponsoring 90% of Hamas's terror budget, as well as arming them and training them. This is the same regime that supplies Hezbollah with precision missiles and provides the Houthis with ballistic missiles. And all this is carried out in order to wreak havoc and instability in the Middle East. And soon, these acts of terror will be carried out under a nuclear umbrella. Yet, the Council basically ignores this enormous threat, the threat that is the Ayatollah regime of Iran. How absurd is it that the foreign minister of the #1 state sponsor of terrorism that aspires to destabilize the Middle East is here today to address the Council? Can you imagine Hitler's foreign minister participating in a serious discussion on how to defend the Jews during the Holocaust? This is an upside-down world.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. Уважаемый. Накануне нашего заседания мы предприняли еще одну попытку добиться солидарной реакции Совета на происходящее и предложили проект заявления председателя с требованием немедленного гуманитарного прекращения огня. Однако США и их союзники этот документ тоже заблокировали, подтвердив, по сути дела, что сохранение жизни мирных палестинцев в их приоритеты не входит. Гуманитарные последствия такой политики ужасны. Погибли почти 30 тысяч мирных жителей, в том числе огромное количество женщин и детей. Мы сегодня проводим заседание по ситуации на Ближнем Востоке, прежде всего. Мы верим, что наши палестинские братья и сестры проявят стратегическую мудрость и откажутся от всех конъюнктурных соображений, междоусобиц, которые препятствуют национальному строительству. Они должны сами решать, как должно выглядеть их будущее государство, кто и как должен им управлять. По-моему, наши западные коллеги называют это демократией.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Stopping the genocide in Gaza. Is it main key to, is the main key to the restoration of security to the region? Thank you for organizing this timely meeting. Mr. President, the killing of civilians in Gaza and the West Bank cannot continue until the so-called total destruction of Hamas, because that time will never come.
Vous avez devant vous la liste des orateurs et oratrices ayant demandé à participer en vertu de l'article 37.